And I quit. I didn't quit, I retired. Mm. And the draw is like perfect.
Okay.
My man Ahmad Rashad is gonna die. He's gonna die.
Well, if you decide you want to give him one,
I'm only giving him
well,
one.
you know, then
He likes these too.
and I signed both boxes as
Thank
a
you, sir.
memento
I
of
may
this
not give him
occasion.
one of these though.
Oh, yeah. You ready?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. 20, 30 years ago, millions of boys growing up wanted to be just like Mike. When you were growing up, who did you look up to? Who did you want to be?
Um, well, I was closer to watching my father do most of the stuff. So I mean, I wasn't really into professional sports because where I grew up, you only had like two television stations, NBC and ABC, and we couldn't even get the NBA games. So most of my focus stayed on the college game. So I was a big college basketball player. I watched college and then baseball. Obviously, my father was a big baseball fan. He loved Roberto Clemente. So he was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I kind of grew up emulating or following his footsteps in terms of who he admired as who I watched. Um, I grew up also a NASCAR fan. So I was a Richard Petty fan. We used to go, my father used to take the whole family, pack us all in, this Chrysler Plymouth, and we would drive all over North Carolina, South Carolina, and go watch stock car racing. So I was more into stock car racing than I was into anything else,
Okay.
to be honest.
So in late 2015,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know of this, but the Harris poll surveyed Americans to rank the most popular athletes in American history. And you were voted number one. Babe Ruth was number two. Muhammad Ali was number three. And then there were a bunch of others, many of whom you know. All of this is wonderful. In your life, what is your greatest regret?
Oh. I really don't have regrets. I am a person that says, as soon as you look back in your history and you come up with something that you feel like you want to change, something else has to change. So
What about your biggest disappointment?
once again, that's the same analogy. Disappointment to me, to win, you got to lose. To be successful, you got to have something that's not successful. To be happy, you got to have disappointment. So I think all of those things have evolved and happened to make me who I am and understand the benefits and the privileges I have for being who I am, and not to wear it on my sleeve, be very humble about it. That's one thing my parents taught me very well is, don't wear your reputation, don't wear your accolades, don't wear your personality on your sleeve. Let it happen, let it be you. It is who you are. Don't hide from it, but don't wear it and rub it in people's faces. So, when you sit there and you say, well, in 1990 or 2005, they voted me as like the best or the most popular athlete, well, it's ironic that I'm the youngest of the three. So in essence, it's all relevated on who is watching now. If you ask 20 years from now, I'm pretty sure LeBron may beat me, based on who's going to be making the voting. So I say that to understand that, it is what it is. I don't wear it. I don't showcase it. I don't rub it in other people's faces. Someone else's opinion. If you ask me, I can never give you an opinion about things like that because as an athlete, all you want to do is be the best athlete you can be.
Well, on that point, when we did the interview 12 years ago, you made a big point that you wanted it to be private, that you wanted to take back your life, that you had been
Yeah,
in the
sure.
public eye and so forth and so forth. Now, I'll be jumping around, but I have this burning question that I think you're in a very unique position to answer.
All right.
College kids can't wait to leave school to go into the pros. There's no real rule that you have to be 21 or that you have to finish 4 years.
You have to be 19.
I'm just saying that, but in other words, at age 19, when you're still a very young man, you give up your education, you give up the college experience, and so forth and so on. And upon reflection, I know that you're going to say that some people, for financial reasons, need to, but,
Sure.
but what do you think is really the right way for the NCAA to, or the NBA to handle this?
Well, I've been on both sides, obviously. I left school at the age of 20, 21, my junior season. It wasn't a financial decision. It was more or less a business decision, an opportunity for me to play professional basketball. I was, so close to graduation, so education still was a part of everything that I do, or did at the time. My feelings about, a kid being able to go to the pros, and I've seen both sides, is that you should allow a kid, if he feels like from a financial standpoint, that he wants to go and work and earn a living. I think there's a certain way that you can go about between the NCAA as well as the NBA and all parties involved, that you can systematically build a way to where that kid now at the age of 18 or 19, if they want to go and play professional sports, they should be allowed to. Kind of like baseball. Baseball, I think, has a very good plan, where if you come out and you get drafted at 18, you start in the minor league system and you work your way up to where your skills determine if you are qualified to play on a certain level. Along with that becomes a compensated aspect of what, you're going to be compensated based on your skill set at that particular time, which I think is very correct. So I think from a basketball standpoint, and if you're 18 and you choose not to go to the pros and you go to college, I think you should be obligated to stay in college for a length of time to where you can educate yourself, you focus on education, you focus on your maturity, you focus on your development of your bodies and your mind, and then be allowed to come into the NBA, not the CBA. So I think, to me, that is a perfect model to where everybody gets exactly what they deserve or what they need.
All right. So what's in this young man's head? Is it about getting the best deal he can, or is it playing in the city that he wants to, and there is his hometown, or is the city not an issue? It's what are the criteria upon which they hope they get drafted by a certain team?
Well, I mean, I think that's a little bit hard to determine because in a professional league of multiple teams, when I say a league, you want to be able to have competitive balance within the league. And if a player or an individual can choose based on the city to go to whatever respective team that he wants, you may have, you're going to have some discrepancy in terms of the talent pool and the competitive nature of it. So if everybody wants to go to Chicago, you only can have 12 jobs in Chicago. Chicago going to get all the best players. What about Dallas? What about Washington? What about these other cities? Detroit, Indiana, where they may not be metropolis of cities, but they still have passion for the game of basketball. And you're starting to see a little bit of it now to where all the stars are starting to gang up and go on one team. I think it's going to hurt the overall aspect of the league from a competitive standpoint. And you're going to have just one or two teams that's going to be great, and then the other 28 teams are going to be garbage. Or they're going to have a tough time surviving in the business environment.
So what role, positive or negative, does an agent play in helping the young man make the best decisions?
Well, I'll give you a good example, because
and I ask you that because you're not only a
No,
player,
because
but you're an owner.
I was on the same side.
Yeah.
I was on the other side, and now I'm on this side. Yeah. And I think what the agent's responsibilities is to educate the individuals, educate the kids to be able to make sound decisions from where they sit or what they think they want. A lot of times you have the agents making decisions based on what they want as opposed to what the players wants. And sometimes it's not even in the best interest of the players. It may
Right.
be in the best interest of the agents. That's, I think if you can regulate that, which is very tough, if you can moderate that to where that player or that athlete's going to be educated about his positions, that he can make sound decisions that's going to be best suited for him and his family, that's the correct agenda. My agent, when I came out of college, I had obviously I was in college for 3 years. Coach Smith, my parents taught me, the right from wrong, taught me to understand and listen and learn. And then I got with an agent that basically educated me about the positions that I was in, how to, to manage my own, my personalities, the business aspect, how that translates into, in the business world, things of that nature, to a point now I can do a lot of those things on my own. It's an education. I lived an education. I went through an education based on, how my life was, was lived. I think that can be very helpful for the kids today, but because the agent is not that motivated or not, that's not their energy, they're not teaching the kids, and the kids then, by the time they're not useful to the agent, now have nothing, no decision-making knowledge. A lot of times they may end up broke, they mismanage their money. You can avoid some of those problems, especially when you talk about the kids are skipping college and going to the pros. Where are they going to get that education from? The best the best support system they have is the agent. So if the agent's not going to educate them, you tell me they're going to learn, the pros and cons about being independent and being able to manage their own finances. So when they're not represented by that agent, or they're out of the game of basketball, out of the game of football, can they still articulate and make decisions that's, from a business sense? I think that's one of the major issues. You see a lot of players who, when they retire, they have no money. They've mismanaged their money. They have
In all sports.
in all sports, not just basketball, football, baseball, whatever.
So you talked earlier, you mentioned about the competition between cities, and it's a sort of a dual question. You can go wherever you want with it, but you now are the owner of Charlotte.
Right.
I assume you're at a competitive disadvantage in a lot of ways. And also the audiences who watch basketball are declining over the years. I think it peaked when you were playing.
Right.
Some people say there are just too many teams and the talent pool is diluted, and the economics really favor the bigger cities in a large way. I'm sure you didn't buy the Charlotte team to be an also-ran. You want to win the big prize.
Sure.
Do you have a shot? How can you develop your team to become a winner?
Well, I
Being
think
from Charlotte.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of work, which I'm not afraid of. It takes a lot of, forwardly thinking, seeing good talent, nurturing new talent, developing new talent. One of the biggest issues we do have is we're not a Chicago, we're not a LA. So you have to create a culture, a winning culture, and you got to be able to connect that basketball team to the support system within that community. One of the biggest reasons why I bought the team initially, I felt the team was under preserved, under operated because they were not connected to the community. Charlotte led the league for 10 years. When they first came into the league, led the league in attendance for 10 years, which was a huge economical, support for that city. And the talent pool followed that. They had good teams that went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They won 50 games. They had potentials of winning. And they got lost in the transition. When Charlotte moved to New Orleans, Charlotte was without a team. Then you had an owner come in who was not from North Carolina, did not understand, and we're good friends. Bob Johnson and I are very good friends, and we talk about this and we understand the difference in terms of how things has transpired since I've taken ownership and since he was owner. That disconnected itself from the community, angered the community to where they would not support. The talent pool was not quite the same. It took a transition in terms of the kids were getting younger and younger in drafts. And what that entailed was you didn't have the same talent that when we played, the talent pool was much broader because the kids were in college much longer. And coaches could develop them, their skill set could develop, blah, blah, blah. So as the rules and the more players started to forego college and go to the NBA, what eroded was the talent pool as well and the education of basketball.
One of the advantages you have is that in the 300-mile radius, you have so many colleges that have great teams.
Oh, great, sure.
Are you active in recruiting?
To some degree, yeah, I am. I try to, it's a very sensitive thing to recruit.
Well, you can certainly go to games and see the talent.
Oh yeah, I go see the talent, but in terms of recruiting a kid to go to North Carolina, that's a very personal and family decision. Maybe North Carolina doesn't best suit that kid. Maybe.
No, I'm talking about once they're in college.
Once they're in college, it's not a recruitment anymore. It's a draft.
Yeah, but you can decide who it is you think.
Well, right. You can evaluate it, but if you're at the 9th pick, you got to have 8 other teams pass on that particular player. So you're going to have to understand what may fall back at you at 9. So we have a good department that we put so much emphasis because, as you see, the star players are not rushing to small markets. So your selection of the talent has to be a little bit more worked at and selective for your team and your culture and for the city and from a coaching standpoint as well as from an organizational standpoint. So I put more emphasis on draft than what I used to, because you're not going to be able to get LeBrons of the world to come to Charlotte.
You didn't wake up, or when you were playing for the Bulls, I'm sure it was not on your mind that your dream is one day to own a team. But I'd like to know when the light shined on you that this is something I want to do, and what was it that motivated you to own a team? Because no player's ever done that before.
Well, I always wanted to be connected to basketball, because my love is always going to be towards basketball. And the best way that I think I can pass on the knowledge that I have for the game of basketball to tomorrow's players is through ownership. Being able to earn the respect of the players, be able to communicate with the players, to give them the understanding what it takes to play in the league and to excel within the league. So when I got out of basketball in 2003, actually, I got out in 1998, when the team was dismantled. I really didn't know what I was going to do in terms of ownership. So I looked at, and I was presented an opportunity to be a part of a ownership in Washington from a general manager standpoint. And with that came an education of understanding what it took. So quite naturally, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to understand you're going to make mistakes. The most important thing about making mistakes is being able to learn from them and not be able to duplicate the same mistake. So when I got the opportunity to be a part of the Washington Wizards at the time, Ted Leonsis brought me in as a part of his group. That's where I got my feet wet in terms of ownership. And it was intriguing enough. I didn't have the experience of ownership. I knew what it took, which was a lot of money, a lot of financial support, but the knowledge in terms of being able to transition from a basketball player who could impact a game and determine the outcome to where now you sit up in an office and have not the same control. You have to be able to live vicariously through the players that you select, which sometimes you're going to make mistakes. And with that mistakes, you got to, be able to make adjustments. And that's what I learned in Washington. And, in my first couple of years, I was general manager. Then the next couple of years, I went down and I played, because I still felt I can impact the game from a player standpoint. Not with the same magnitude of what happened in Chicago, but from a teaching standpoint, saying that, okay, a lot of these kids, they believe in leadership from a physical sense, where that I can show you how hard it takes to work. You know, I'm in the gym, the first one in the gym, the last one in the league, blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I can pass that to the players.
So,
That's where the Washington experience
okay,
happened.
so what I'm hearing you say is that your first and greatest passion is basketball.
Yes. At that time, yes.
Okay. Now we're fast forwarding all these years to today, and you are a very complete businessman
Sure.
with many different interests. Do you have a favorite amongst your businesses? Do you spend more time in one than the? I mean, you have, in addition to the team, I can go on and on. I mean, the list
Right.
is pages, but you know, your Jordan shoe brand, I'm told, does $3 billion a year. That ain't hay.
But it was a process with that as well. I mean, and it's dots being connected. You know, it's basketball, something that, you know, when the shoes were at its peak, you know, I played at a high level. And the consumer saw that, and it basically authenticated everything about that shoe. What we've been able to maintain is being able to communicate to the consumer from a basketball, from an ownership standpoint, their preference for that product.
Do you spend a lot of time
I spend
in
a
the
lot.
shoe business?
I spend most of my, if you look at all my portfolio of things that I'm involved in, my strongest passion outside of the ownership of the Hornets is the Jordan brand. Because to me, I can impact that in a much greater sense. To be able to continually talk to that consumer, interact with that consumer. It's not a draft. It's not, you know, it's not where I'm, you know, dependent on how the season ends to determine if I have a draft pick in the first 12 or 13 picks. So if I had to pick of all the, you know, things that I'm involved in, the most important is the Jordan brand because it is my DNA. It is who I am. The Hornets is a product of the personnel that I assemble. And if it doesn't have that DNA, you may not get the same results. So it's a work in progress with the Hornets, with the Jordan brand. It is successful because I can impact it. Or that, you know, how often do you see the symbol of the brand, an icon, that can communicate and say what, you know, what I think or impact that product?
And it truly is global.
Yes, it's truly
Truly is
global.
global. So having the Hornets and having the shoe, I understand, I don't know anything about it, but you have car dealerships.
Sure.
What was that about? Was that just an
It was an
investment?
opportunity presented to me early on that from a friend of mine in Wilmington, North Carolina. He owned car dealerships. He came to me and says, well, you know, I got this opportunity to get involved in car dealership. Would you have an interest? That was purely from a business sense.
Okay. What about the restaurants?
Same exact thing.
But you've had restaurants for a while, and now apparently recently you've been increasing and opening new restaurants. What's
Because of the success of it, the Cornerstone guys who have basically, you know, I partner up with, they help and they manage the restaurant scenarios. And what we have been able to is to understand what works with the consumer, once again. And we've been able to grow that business. So initially, you know, when I was coming out of college or when I was in the NBA early on, would I have said that I would have been a restaurant owner? No. Once that was presented to me and I understood the dynamics of, you know, that business, we were able to grow that, utilizing my persona in a whole different way, tied into restaurants and, you know, obviously.
Was there something about being in the restaurant business that fascinated you personally?
I
or
love food.
just,
I mean, I like food, obviously. I love, you know, gatherings. I love, plus, you know, having somewhere to go
yeah,
where I can control the environment
yeah.
is always intriguing for me because I can let my hair down, what little hair I have,
Yeah.
and be able to do the things I want to do. My restaurants allow me to do that. You know, I can go in, I can get a good meal, I can bring friends, I can talk, I can drink, I can do whatever I choose to do, and not worry about repercussions from that. You know, so it's a safe haven for me, and yet at the same time, it's a great business.
And I assume that you have no problem getting a table.
No, not that I know of. Not that I know of.
We talked 12 years ago about, you know, your love for cigars, and then also you said you enjoyed wine.
Sure.
Has that experience of wine, because you sell wine in your restaurants,
Right.
but at home, are you a drinker? Are you a collector? What?
I'm a drinker. I do collect, but you know, I don't believe in collecting and not being able to enjoy. You know, so
What kinds of wines do you drink at home?
I'm into Burgundies, Pinots right now, and I got the education of wine from Bill Gelato, you know, who is a good friend of mine. You know, and we spend time talking about it. At one point in time, we were thinking about doing a wine together. It never materialized, or I never got to a point where I could devote the time to doing something, because you can always put your name on something. But, you know, most of the things that I do, practically all the things I do, is very authentic in terms of my involvement. I don't want to just lend my name to a product, because at the end of the day, that product is always going to represent my DNA. So I like to have some interest, and I like to have some input. I like to have some participation. It's nothing that doesn't go out with my name on it, that we don't oversee, we don't deal with. So it's a process. It's something that I have a strong interest. My wife loves it. We have countless number of bottles of wine. You know, we do tastings. No difference in cigars. I collect cigars, as you know.
Well, we're going to get to the cigar. Let's digress to this.
Golf?
I mean, it seems like anytime I'm at the Bears Club, you're out there wheeling around in your golf cart with a cigar in your mouth.
I smoke 6 cigars a day, maybe.
Do you play golf almost every day?
Almost every day.
And sometimes 36 holes.
Always 36 holes.
And what's your handicap these days?
4, and it's a bad 4. So don't think that you
No,
can take advantage.
No,
of it.
I heard it was a 2. So
no,
I mean, I'm
it's
just
a 4.
Well, you're friends with a lot of the young pros. I'm just curious, because a lot of us, I'm going to mention a few that I know you know.
All right.
And I'd like you to give me an idea of how good you think they are and what you think their potential are, because these are guys that I'm pretty sure you know very well.
Sure.
Let's start with a new neighbor soon, Rory.
Very talented. Never played golf with him yet.
Really?
I've seen him on the range. We have talked. I'm a big fan. For someone that small and generate that much power, it's truly amazing. I'm fascinated with my massive size and some of these guys being so small, and they can blow it past me, which is somewhat frustrating, but it is what it is. I mean, you know, Ricky is coming into his own, real talented. He's actually just starting to get over the hump of being, I think where I read, and this is not what my interpretation was, he was the most overrated golfer I think that I saw. And I thought that was not fair. I felt like he's a phenomenon in the sense that he resonates with the consumers and with the kids. And I think he had some jealousies in that approach and in the way people viewed him. But you know, and I had some, you know, I can have some correlation to that, you know.
Have you ever played with Jordan?
No, I did. I just played with him about 4 weeks ago in Cabo. Great kid, very, very polite, very talented, grinder. If you got a guy that's, you know, that's not talented, but yet he has heart, he has determination, you know, he finds a will to win. That's Jordan. He doesn't hit it long. He's a great putter. You know, he's got a lot of attributes, and I think a lot of it comes from, you know, just his hard work.
Justin?
Talented. I met him when he was 12 years old.
Do you play with any of these guys?
Play with them all. I play with them all here. I do all I can to get their competitive nature up.
So who am I missing that is in this young collective group of
I played with Brooks
superstar-
Koepka,
yeah,
who's young and up and coming.
yeah.
I played with Jamie Lovemark, who was, NCAA winner. Keegan Bradley, obviously he wears the Jordan shoes. Luke Donald is like a senior friend of mine who teaches me more things about the game from a mental and from a short game standpoint that I spend probably most of my time with because he's two doors down from my house, and his wife and my wife are very close friends.
I know that you have been over the years very close with Tiger.
Tiger, sure.
Where do you see him in terms of his life?
It's a transitional period, we athletes, we go through that, and then we have to be adults. We got to make, sound decisions. We got to make quality decisions. He is, to me, in a very unique situation. Tiger played, and at his peak, somewhere towards the end of mine, of my career. And then what changed between that time frame to now, social media, Twitter, all those types of things that has invaded the personality and the personal times of individuals to a point where, people have been able to, utilize it to financial gains, things of that nature. And, for someone like myself, and this is what Tiger deals with, is that I don't know if I could, survive in this Twitter comment, in this Twitter time, where you don't have the privacy that you would want. And what seems to be very innocent can be always being misinterpreted.
In the conversation of 5-10 years ago, it was always who's greater, who's going to be the greatest, him or Jack. And that conversation is pretty much over to most people.
I beg to differ, and I'll give a different analogy to that because, first of all, you're never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. Jack and Tiger never played against each other. They never played in the same tournament. They never played with the same equipment. They never played with the same, length of golf course. I never played against Will Chamberlain. I never played against, Jerry West. To now say that, one's greater than the other is being a little bit, unfair, I think when you can see the similarities and you understand, this is one way you can judge the two. How much impact did each change or evolve the game? Jack during his time when he played, but Tiger during his time. Now, obviously Jack won more during the time he played. Tiger evolved it to where it was, it crossed a lot of different boundaries, where it's not just a white guy's sport, the black guys, Afro-Americans, all the minorities play the game. And you play it at a level to where it generated so much interest financially that it grew the game from a financial standpoint. Now, does that constitute him being the greatest, or does that mean he's any less than Jack? I think is unfair. Yeah, Jack probably has 18 majors and Tiger's got 14. And I think those are when, that's how people are judging certain things. I won 6 championships. Bill Russell won 11. Does that make Bill Russell better than me and make me better than him? No, because we play at different eras. So when you try to equate who's the greatest of all time, it's an unfair parallel. It's an unfair choice. And I think, those are the demons that, obviously Tiger had to live with, and he's going to be challenged and he's going to be graded upon that. But for me, I think they're both great. I would never say one is greater than the other. That's me. That's my opinion.
Okay. I wasn't suggesting one was. I was just asking your thoughts.
Yeah, well, that's my thoughts.
Moving from basketball to Derek Jeter, doesn't he stay with you?
Yeah.
I mean, because I saw him one
He's
day.
like my little brother.
And I said, "Where are you staying?" He said, "I'm staying with Michael."
No, hangs out. We hang out a lot. We spend.
And then a few weeks ago, I saw your name mentioned as an investor in the Marlins.
Yeah.
So what motivate is it strictly friendship or a business or?
Both.
Or
I mean,
you love baseball?
I
or-
love baseball. My love for baseball, and it's not final. Obviously,
Yeah.
they got to go through the approval state of his ownership. And when he came to me about getting involved, I said, "Look, I would support you in whatever way. I have my own businesses. I have the Hornets. I have the Jordan brand. I would support you in whatever way you want me to support you." I think he's motivated to build a baseball franchise that can be successful. That is who he is. That's the way he lived his life. It's very resemblant. It resembles everything that I tried to do from a basketball sense. He's trying to do from a baseball sense. I can only congratulate. I can only support. I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's going to, he's going to roll up his sleeves. He's going to dive in. He's going to try to do the best that he can in terms of reconnecting it back to the city of Miami and blah, blah, blah. I don't know how I can, be a part of it, but I am a part from afar and from a support standpoint.
Well, in some ways.
But I love the game of baseball.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Right. And in some ways, you now are on almost identical paths as
Yeah.
owners with a team that needs to step up its game.
Yes. And the thing that I can provide for him is for my team, to be able to lend him advice and give him some insights in terms of what we did in Charlotte, and to reconnect and to turn things around to where it's a more successful franchise.
You talk about teaching. Have you ever been a coach?
No,
Did you ever want to be a coach?
no. I have no patience for coaching. My biggest problem from a competitive standpoint is the focus of today's athlete and the focus of where I saw the game, how I pursued the game. It changes and it's totally different. So to me, for me to ask an individual to focus on the game the way I played the game, in some ways would be, unfair for that kid to have to endure that. And if he didn't do it, no telling where my emotions would be. I don't think I would have the patience for it. So in essence, coaching is something that I've never really felt I could do from an emotional standpoint because I'm much different and I have a different perception about things than what the kids do today.
Because it's a cigar magazine, and because I'm trying to reach out to what my reader would want to know about you, I'm sure they would all like to know, you said you smoke 6 cigars a day.
Sure.
What do you smoke? What are your favorite
My
cigars?
favorite?
Yeah.
Partagas Lusitanians is my favorite. And that's,
So you like a big cigar?
I like a big cigar, but I don't, I can smoke a small cigar too. I like variety. I like to at least experiment on different types of levels in terms of cigars.
Why don't we go, this one, it's this is.
I'm not giving this up. You want to try something else?
No, I want to go the pre-cast
Okay,
show
I'll go with
just because the draws will.
But nothing wrong with this draw.
No.
It's just that you got me talking so much I can't smoke the cigar.
Well, I want to apologize.
Okay, no problem.
I don't want to leave without having this cigar. So, and I
I
don't
was
want.
hoping you forget.
No, and I
There's
don't want
more
you.
for me.
I don't want you taking home the box, and I don't open these that often.
Oh, this is going to be great. This is the best part about this whole process is the cigars that you had to come up with.
These are your cigars. Now.
Yeah, no shit.
This is a pre-Castro Cuban. And I can't wait to
Have
light
you
it
ever been to Cuba?
many times. That's where we were headed next. So,
Here,
so
I got this. I'm smoking this.
actually, I started going there in 1991 to do a cover story for the Wine Spectator on Cuban cigars. I had no idea when I went there I was going to have a cigar magazine. Then I went to Cuba, and it's like I didn't want to die with having.
Well,
having a cigar magazine.
that's my dream trip.
Well, I have a quote here from our last interview 12 years ago. And it's this quote: "My biggest dream is to visit Cuba and visit some of the cigar factories."
Yes.
Obviously, with the embargo, it's a little difficult.
Yes.
Well, you can go now.
I could. I want to go with no restraints, though. If I go right now, you still have restraints, politically as well as, a lot of other things. My wife is Cuban. Her family has got a lot of memories about Cuba. So in essence, she wants to go, which I think is a motivational factor because she wants to go for different reasons. I want to go for particular reasons, obviously. So in terms of us being able to go, it's coming. It's just a matter of time. I know I'm going.
I'm going to tell you something you already know.
I know you're going to take me. You can take
No,
me.
no, I wasn't going to say I'm going to take you
Yeah, you
because
can.
I don't want to be surrounded by thousands and thousands of people following me around as you would.
I don't want to either.
But you would be so unbelievably welcome in Cuba from the Cuban people and the Cuban government. It would have an enormous impact on how they felt about their own self-esteem.
Really?
Yes.
I never looked at it that way.
And
I mean, I looked at it from a selfish standpoint in terms that I think it's a very rich country. When I say rich, in terms of the things that I like, heritage and things of that nature, old, traditional. Initially, and one of the things that my father-in-law and I talk about all the time is that I wish I can buy one of those old cars and ship it back here because to me that's very authentic to be able to see something like that and to be able to go and see how this transformation happens because I'm such a fan of cigars.
Well, if you, I don't want to get into too much. I've been there many times, but if you went in a cigar factory, all cigar making would stop, and they would give you a welcome that would give you goosebumps.
But I don't want them to stop. I want to see what they do.
Well, they'll then you ask them to continue, and they'll continue. But
that's my dream. That's my dream trip.
Okay, so have you ever been to a cigar factory anywhere else in any of the other Caribbean countries?
No, never have.
You are recognized in the business press. I hate to even use the word. I apologize for using the word. A billionaire.
Me?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does it mean?
I don't think it changes anything. I mean, other than that, people can call me and ask me for money, maybe.
Yeah.
Or I got
no, but I mean, on one level, you started out as a.
Snotty-nosed kid from North Carolina with Dean Smith. Sure, I got an afro back there. You see that? Right?
But if your dad were alive, he'd be so proud of you.
What would my father do right now? First of all, he'd probably be sitting here smoking a cigar and answering some of the questions that you. He's a very thoughtful guy. The thing that I remember the most about my father, and I had him for 32 years, and I never look at it from a negative sense. Obviously, he was murdered, and rarely do I get the chance to talk about him. But the thing that I do remember all the time, I think about him practically every day, is for a person like myself who live in the spotlight and is so critical, from people all the time in terms of what I do, what I say, where I go. The thing he's always said. Take a pause before you make a decision and say, what if? And the purpose for saying what if is that whatever decision you make, always either going to have consequences, either pros and cons.
No, but you obviously listened to your father because in the very beginning, you spoke about being humble, not shouting about who you are and what you've done, and just being within yourself.
Sure.
And a lot of kids growing up may start that way because of their parents, but don't end up that way.
Right.
You ended up that way.
Well, I mean, once again, it's not just my father. My mother calls me practically every day, reiterating, keep your nose clean. She ends the conversation of every time I hang up, as opposed to me, hey, obviously we say, I love you, Mom, can't wait to see you, talk to you soon, blah, blah, blah. Her last word is keep your nose clean. That's her constant reminder to say, hey, look, people are watching. People are learning, people are paying attention. And, the best news in today that sells is negative news.
That's all the reporters want.
I know. And not that I live in a box to where I'm afraid to do things. I know that, as my father says, the what if comment is to be able to deal with the consequences of what decisions you make. And you think about that. If you think about the consequences, pro or con, you make the right decisions that you feel is the right decision. Now, all the decisions I made, other people may view to be not the right decisions from their perspective. But for me to go play baseball, and everybody says, "Oh, it was a failed opportunity to play baseball." That's what they think. For me, it was the best thing that could have happened for me because it allowed me to go back to the game with a stronger passion. At the same time, I was able to understand the love that these minor league baseball players have, making $1,500 a month. $1,500 a month, which is nothing. But for them, it was big. To me, to see that helped me put things in perspective, to understand the platform that I was on in 93, that when I went back to it in 95 and 96, I appreciated it even greater. So when we won those championships and we went through those things mattered to me far greater than what I did in 91, 92, 93. People don't see that, and people will never understand that to be success. All they think about, well, he batted 202, and he struck out a certain number of times. Yeah, okay. But the effort was there, and the learning curve and the passion was there that has transcended not just to me, but to other people who are afraid to do things because they're worried about the perception that may come from other places. To me, that's more gratifying than anything, So that's the things that my father and my mother instilled in me. Take a negative and turn it into a positive. Don't be afraid to fail.
I know you're concentrating on the answers because it's a very serious conversation.
No, I'm not. I'm telling you exactly the way I feel. My answers are what I absolutely
understand,
feel.
but what I really want to ask you now is, while you've been talking, you've been smoking a pre-Castro Cuban cigar, and how does it taste?
Great.
Is it unbelievable?
Absolutely great.
So, other than playing golf with me again and going to Cuba,
That was really.
Huh?
Did I win?
No, you were at.
Did I win?
I'll tell you what happened.
It's a yes or no question.
I got it. What happened was you insisted on playing for more money per hole than I wanted to play for by a large amount.
It's not the money.
Wait a second. We were down on 18.
I didn't say how much did I win.
No.
I said, did I win?
We were down going into 18, and Billy said to me, "Don't worry, I'll take care of this hole," and we ended up pushing. So to repeat the question, other than playing golf again with me, and other than going to Cuba, what's on your bucket list?
The winning championship in Charlotte.
Bravo.
That to me is huge because I think the city deserves it. They've gone through a lot. Me personally, like any father, I just want to see my kids successful. I've endured, or I've gone through so much of good things. There's very few bad things, but bad things make you better. But I don't need anything else to suffice my life.
So what is this that has been written about, but not in any great detail, that there's a 8 or 10 part documentary coming out where there's many hours of film, I guess going back 20 or 30 years, and that there's something coming that is going to be very unusual in terms of a person's life. Can you talk about it?
You're very knowledgeable about things that you're not supposed to be knowledgeable about. Yes, the tapings of my last year, or our last year, 1998, we had a camera following us the whole time to capture the last dance at that time, because everybody felt like the team was going to get dismantled. And what you see, I think, in that is my dedication to the game of basketball, unwaveringly, dedication day in and day out, and how I hold being the leader of the team, being the one that's been there for the longest. I hold everybody else accountable for the success of what happened at the end of the year. And people may look at it and, they're going to get an honest understanding for what winning is about, what leadership is about, what passion, drive. Now, players may look at it and say, well, God, it was really tough. But when you think about what happened after us winning, the contracts that, the guys got, the memories that everybody got, the championship, blah, 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 it's much more gratifying.
Is the documentary finished?
No, it's not finished.
Have you seen a lot of it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
So it's been through an editing process and stuff?
No, it has not gone through a true editing
When
process.
will we all be able to see it?
I think that's one of the things that we had determined. My agent and all my people that's been working with me along with the league has been pushing for me to do it. And it's one of those things where, there's a time. It's going to be a time where you showcase it. And when you showcase it, people are going to understand, what really happened and they can put themselves in that position. I have no problems, with people seeing that as long as they understand the passion, because it's a strong passion for it. And it's very raw.
But it's going public.
Eventually.
Yeah, but I mean,
Eventually it will.
I think it's a wonderful way to go public, to share with people what it was like in those days.
You sound like my agent and my financial people, all the people that work
I'm
for me.
available.
Yeah, I know. Sure. But I think it's a true passion. I think it gives a great example for if you love something and your agenda is to be successful and to win, it's a certain price you have to pay and it's a certain accountability you have to hold.
Okay, but here's where I'm going. This is 20 years ago, represented values that you had that many athletes today don't even understand, right, let alone possess. So it could be a great learning experience, sure, and teaching experience for all these young people that think it's owed to them.
If it's perceived properly, once again, and I say that, with the understanding that this is a very critiquing period, of this world, to where, your intent may be viewed, and we're going to try to make sure the intent is portrayed in the right way. But that doesn't mean, someone's not going to interpret it totally opposite of what the intent may be. And then it's going to be up for scrutiny and up for conversation and criticized and blah, blah, blah. I'm not worried about that because, at the end of the day, my heart, my soul, my dedication is in the right place.
So I, right now, have one regret.
You?
I have a regret. This f***ing cigar is one of the greatest cigars I've ever smoked in my life. And I'm giving you the only,
you hate giving me that box. Yeah, that's I figured that was something like that. You hate giving me that box.
Taste it. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Come on, man. Everything comes with a price. You want to share with people that you actually care about. And in essence, that's what you're doing. You know that I'm not just gonna, waste it. I'm gonna take joy in that I'm gonna smoke every one of them.
Oh, don't give them to your friends.
I'm not gonna give these things. Believe me, I know how to. I can censor these types of situations. I'm not gonna give guys who've never smoked a cigar a 30-year-old cigar that they can't appreciate.
What, 30? Forget about 30.
Well,
it's 60 years or something.
Okay, 60
How many years? I mean, we're talking about.
I got you covered. You only got one though, and I'm not gonna give anybody. I'm not gonna smoke more than one a day.
All right. So to wrap it up, because I'm almost speechless, but I have a job to do, so I can't. Why do you do so few interviews? I mean, hardly any. And why have you agreed to give us a second one?
You haven't figured that out? All you got to do is look at those two boxes over there.
Yeah, but you didn't know they were coming.
Well, I told you the only way I was going to do it. You got to dig in your humidor and give me something that's worthwhile. So
But-
I laid the parameters early.
But you trusted me.
I did. I trust you. I figured you would be honest. I don't think you're going to do it. But part of the reasons why I've kind of toned back is I want my life to be my life. You know, I don't want to sit here and constantly reiterate things that, you know, I've said countless number of times. And at the end of the day, my time in the spotlight is dwindling. And I want to be able to control what I can, you know, what I do and what I don't want to do and blah, blah, blah. Someone else needs to step into the limelight and either enjoy it, you know, or prosper from it, or grow, or have people understand who they are, blah, blah, blah. Me, I need no more admiration. You know, I've had enough, and it's been great. I'm still going to be a very positive, you know, force within the community, and, you know, with the kids of tomorrow. But I got my own kids. I got my own wife. I mean, I'm 54 years old, you know. I want to be able to go through a day or go through a week not worrying about what I got to do Wednesday, what I got to do Thursday, what I got to do, because I never enjoy Monday. I want to be able to, you know, and sometimes I surprise the shit out of myself saying, look, I got nothing to do today. Oh, I got nothing to do tomorrow. I got nothing to do on Wednesday. That's, to me, is ultimately retirement. You know, that's where I want to be. And if I choose to get involved in things, then hey, you know, I want to go to Charlotte and I want to see what's happening with the team. Or I want to go to Portland, spend a week out in Portland, blah, blah, blah. But not to where, you know, my moment, the moment that I'm living right now, I'm worried about what I have to do tomorrow. And that's where my life was getting.
All right, so I probably work too hard. So all I can say to you is I want to be like Mike.
You can. Drink Gatorade, shave your hair, get a suntan, you know, all the things, smoke a lot of cigars.
Well, I did that part.
All right, good.
You have ever, I am dying to know, have you had any holes in one?
2.
Where?
At Turnberry in Miami on number 3 and number 7. One I hit a 7-iron, one I hit a 5-wood.
Wow.
I only had 2. But, I mean, it was enough to keep me coming back.